The devil's lettuce is just one name given to weed, or marijuana. It has been considered a Schedule I drug by the DEA, which means it can be compared to some of the most dangerous and addictive drugs in the whole world. So, it's clear that there's a whole lot of risk involved with it. But here's the question: can it actually kill you? Especially considering weed is becoming one of the most common drugs all around the world, it's important to realize just how much of a risk it can have. To answer the question, let's look at a real-life story from 2017. Back on the 10th of April 2017, a 22-year-old boy, Michael, was found unconscious in his bedroom by his mother. She called 911 right away, but by the time they could reach, Michael had already lost his life. Later, it was found by a medical examiner that marijuana was present in Michael's bloodstream. Not just that, but his parents also found marijuana in his room. And since then, his parents are convinced that marijuana is the reason he died. They're convinced that the drug took their son's life. But let's look at some medical facts, shall we? Despite what the parents believed, the medical examiner, Dr. Junair Shaikh, said that he's unsure about what role, if any, marijuana made to Michael's death. What we know for sure is that Michael had a cardiac arrest. But was it linked to marijuana? According to doctors, no. And there's no medical evidence that suggests that his cardiac arrest or death was triggered by marijuana. And his death certificate doesn't write marijuana or cannabis as his cause of death. For a drug to be listed as the source of death, there has to be a case of overdose rather than just being a contributing factor. Yes, marijuana could have been a contributing factor. Yes, people that are already suffering from health complications can become worse due to marijuana. It can contribute to death. But if we talk about death that was primarily induced by marijuana, there are absolutely no reported cases of that from anywhere in the world. In fact, the deputy director of NORML, Paul Armentano, told Healthline that marijuana or cannabis isn't capable of causing death, even by a lethal overdose. So, no. Smoking too much weed can't necessarily kill you, but it's not entirely safe either. Like I mentioned, if there are pre-existing cardiovascular or health conditions a person is suffering from, marijuana can make them worse, and they can even lead to death. Other than that, smoking too much weed can also cause cannabinoid hypermesis syndrome, or CHS, which can cause nausea, vomiting, and abdominal pain. And in 2018, a teenager did die of dehydration, which was made worse because he was also suffering from CHS. So, yes, there are some incidents that show marijuana can be one of the reasons for death, but it's still considered a safer drug if you compare it to the number of deaths that have been caused by drugs like alcohol and tobacco. But that does not mean it's a harmless substance. As with any drug, there are short and long-term risks associated with marijuana as well. So, it's always best to be careful. If you or anyone else you know is suffering from drug addiction or abuse, it's always good to consult a treatment center and try to avoid it as soon as possible.